Hello and welcome. This podcast is created to explore the many different ways people move through our world, especially when life, health, injury, circumstance, or the environment can make everyday experiences easier or harder in different ways. We all experience the world differently at different points in our lives, and by listening to one another, I hope we can build more awareness, empathy, and understanding. The goal is not to define anyone by a label, but to learn from real experiences so that we can design homes, workplaces, technology, public spaces, services, and communities that work better for more people.
Before we jump in, just a reminder, there's no right or wrong language here, no questions that could possibly have a wrong answer, so please use whatever words feel most comfortable and are true to you. We really appreciate you helping us better understand what a more inclusive world could look like.
Hello, welcome, Gemma. Lovely to have you here.
Hiya, thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
Look forward to sort of learning a lot about you, and so I'll start with the very, very, generic question, but something that I really want to know. Can you tell us a little bit about you and your background?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Gemma. I say I identify these days as a product designer. So I've been working in tech, I think, for the past probably 11 or 12 years now. And my career, first of all, started as a graphic designer, as much of us tend to do. And then I was very interested in web design. UX wasn't really a term back then when I started off. It was just pretty much, nice, pretty websites and stuff like that. But the more I kind of went out through my career and the more agencies I worked for or in-house companies, I come across the term UX. And I kind of loved the background of it and like how you work out why you do certain things. So it's not just making things look pretty, it's more about like why it works or how it works and getting users to where they need to be as quickly as possible. And then throughout my time as a UX designer, um, I fell in love with accessibility and accessible design, mainly because of my own personal background of being dyslexic. So that was the main reason why I went into web design, because print design terrified me because it's final. Print design is, and it's so expensive. If you made that one little spelling mistake, that's it. You have to redo it. At least with web design, you can just change it really quickly, send it up to live, and it's all done. So that's why I was like more like in the web design area, and then accessible design. Like I said, I fell into that mainly because of my own personal experiences of being dyslexic and really learning about how to make products usable for people, not just the general public, just pretty much like for people in general with all abilities and all different backgrounds.
Amazing. And if you want to start telling us a little bit about yourself specifically and your sort of typical perhaps week or day or and what that entails.
So right now I'm a freelance contractor. So, and the reason why I went freelance is because of the barriers I tend to come up against quite a lot within companies or within like agencies of accessible design and accessibility requirements are always around budgets and whether or not we can pay for it to be implemented. Now, personally, I believe that it should just be part of the process and it should just be a given that we make things accessible and it shouldn't be treated as an add-on or a feature. And I really wanted to push more on that narrative, and that's why I wanted to become a contractor so I can go into these companies and really help them achieve accessible design and accessible products in a way that it can be part of the delivery process and it's just a given from day one, and showing them how, I wouldn't say easy, but how like realistic it is to implement. And the fact to not treat it as an add-on feature, to treat it as a given. So that's pretty much what I spend my day doing now is either like doing Instagram content. So I got a following on Instagram, which I fell into back in 2020 when the world shut down and we were all bored. I started to show my opinions over on there and kind of build an audience. over there, and then mainly geared it all around like accessibility and accessible design, and why we should be doing it and how to do it and how to implement it basically.
Great. And what can you give us a couple examples that you struggle with in terms of accessibility when you try it from a personal sort of point of view?
Yeah, so the biggest thing for me is reading content, obviously with dyslexia. Capital letters, nightmare. Um, and just like finding content like that is always been difficult for me. And typing is the worst thing ever. And trying to communicate over text is the worst thing ever. Like, I know everyone is either for AI or against AI, but I personally like it because it catches all my spelling mistakes and pretty much like rewrites it so people can understand it. Because I have an inside joke with like my friends and my family where it's like, oh, you speak Gemma kind of thing, because my text messages are insane. Like, you either understand them or you don't. Um, the AI has like helped in so many ways, especially within my career and in my job, where I can now communicate better with people or with stakeholders in a way that I don't have to sit there for hours trying to rewrite my own emails. I can either speak to it or just give it my brain dump and then say, just put that in a usable format or readable format for this type of person. It's brilliant for that.
It's fantastic. I mean, it's one of the things that Joanna and I have the most conversations about is probably AI, right? So I'm not going to push too much on that, but it's lovely hearing your experience. One of the things I wanted to ask before we get into that sort of thing that triggers is, um, a lot of people understand dyslexia in terms of like they get described what dyslexia is and they kind of know, but what is it like to, if you excuse the slight pun, sort of like see through your eyes? So in other words, can you describe, obviously dyslexia is difficulty when you type, difficulty when you read, but for you, can you make us see through your eyes what you go through when you say open an email or when you open, and when you try to type, can you try and describe exactly what that's like, if possible?
So basically, one of the main things I get called up on, or did get called up upon throughout my career, is my spelling. And sometimes I use like the wrong word. So the perfect example is sing and sign. They all have the same letters, but they're in different orders. Now, if you showed me sing and sign, I can't tell the difference between them. They look exactly the same. So the way or people's brains in general, the way they do tend to work is that you read the first letters and then the last letters, and your brain kind of just fills in the gap. So for me, no matter if it's spelt right or wrong, I can still read it. But then the negative side to that is, if I'm writing an email or if it's like I'm tender's the bane of my existence. If I'm going through a tender document and I've spelled something wrong, no matter how many times I go through it, I will not pick up on that spelling mistake. Impossible. Like, my brain just sees the word, reads it as I meant it, and that's it. Like, it doesn't. So if you think about things where like the words move around or they jumble, that's what it's like for me. Other people have all different forms of dyslexia where things can go lighter or darker or they can move. I don't really get the movement. I just get letters mixed up and I can't tell if they're in the right or wrong order. But that's as clear as I can explain it. And what used to come up quite a lot, like I said, was about my spelling mistakes and stuff like that. But people or like managers and stuff will focus on that and not focus on the overall bigger picture. And I think that that's what I try to like change within the perception of like people who have dyslexia or have like some sort of cognitive disability, is that people are different. You can look past those things and there are things in place. So I always make sure that my stuff gets proofread by somebody else because they can pick up on the mistake. I don't take offense to anything. Like, if it's spelt wrong, just let me know. I'll change it. Like, it's as simple as that. And just like being that simple towards people with dyslexia and being like, oh yeah, there's an issue there, just switch it or rewrite it for me. I don't care. Whatever is better. But yeah, it's having that's like my lived experiences, and a lot of stuff as well was back when I was in school. Um, I was told quite a lot throughout school, oh, she's lazy. Um, she doesn't see the board properly. She must have problems with her eyes. Ironically, back then I had 20/20 vision. My mother would take me to get my eyes tested, and every time they were like, her eyes are perfect. Um, she's just being lazy or not paying attention and stuff like that. But the reality was, I just couldn't do the simple task of, well, to them it seemed simple, of copying the letters from the board into my workbook, because that isn't the way my brain works. Like, well, it is, but like I'll just write it in a different way, or another way, or use the wrong word. Um, so those are like some of the misconceptions on what it's like living with dyslexia, because you're constantly being not put down, but like the things that you can't change are always something that's always brought up to you, and it's like, okay, I don't know how many times I need to explain this or whatever, but like I think I just got to a part now in my life where it's just, I just don't really like take it on board. I think you just gain like resilience, I think, over time. But yeah, especially for like younger people and stuff, it is difficult. So looking past those things, or using tools to help you, like I said, AI is perfect.
So when did you first find out you were dyslexic? At what point did things change for you?
It didn't actually change until my third year of university, when you have to write a dissertation. So your dissertation, I did graphic communications. So luckily, all of my work wasn't based on exams or anything like that. It was based on coursework, so, an arts degree. But obviously, included in that, to get the honours, you have to write a dissertation. So I wrote my dissertation, and I prepared so much like in advance, and I would always get bad marks on my writing. But I had a lecturer at the time, and she was lovely. And over the summer, we were meant to basically just outline what our dissertation was going to be about. And I outlined mine as best as I could. And she read it, and she said, I can tell exactly what you're trying to say. She said, it's laid out correctly, like as in your points you want to make. You're either not using correct grammar, you're using the wrong words, and one another telltale signs is you put a comma instead of full stops on everything. So my sentences and stuff were really, really long. So she said, I believe you're dyslexic. And she said, that's okay. Um, I just know what you're trying to do, but if you can get somebody to proofread this and help you write it, we can get through that. So that's what I did. And bless her, yeah, she gave me good marks. And yeah, from that point on, it kind of like clicked to be like, oh, okay. Because I was always branded as like the lazy girl, or she's not paying attention, or she can't, do the simple task. I think in school, it was always like written off that way, instead of seeing it as like, oh, maybe she needs some help. And yeah, when I was like super young, my mother did bring up to the school at the time, or is it a possibility of dyslexia? But I think back then it just genuinely wasn't like a thing with like neurodiversity and stuff. They didn't really like look into it. It was just like, oh, she's just they called it mirror writing back then, which meant that like obviously we in English we write from left to right. Now, if you like put a mirror there, I would write that way around. So I would go from right to left, but do it in a mirror way of writing. Which again is a common sign apparently for kids with dyslexia at the time, but it didn't get picked up on until yeah my third year of university. And then having that information going forward, I was like, right, at least I have something now to like anchor to. So if anyone ever brings it up, I just say, oh yeah, I just got dyslexia. These are the things I do to help me by. But if you see any spell mistakes, just let me know. I'll change it. That's pretty much what I do these days.
And how did that feel? So you were an adult who had been almost created a persona around you throughout your life. How did it feel to say, oh, I don't have a word like that? How did you feel about it?
Um, at the time, I didn't like it. I didn't like the label. Because I was just like, I just wanted to be like everyone else. I just didn't want to like a problem or an issue. Just like, oh, it's not a thing. But then I think as time went on, and the more I got used to it, and the more like I started to see it in myself a bit more, especially when people would like help me with those things and then pick up on it. Like, oh yeah, now I can see it. I've used sing instead of sign, or which instead of which, a which or which way. Always get that mixed up. And it wasn't until like I think I got like more comfortable in myself. I think yeah, back then I was quite defensive about it. But I think I was defensive about it all because like how much I was put down throughout like school and stuff, like being branded the girl who's like doesn't pay attention and stuff. You kind of just like yeah, kind of stays with you. But then I think the more I grew older and the more I got used to it, and the more that I found stuff that could help me, um, it was way better. Like I said, like AI, amazing these days. Spell check was a nightmare for me. Because loads of people used to say that to me, just use spell check. And spell check is awesome, but it can't pick up on grammar. It can't pick up on the wrong word. Because sing and sign, they're spelled correctly. They're just in the wrong context. So spell check does not help, and that was the worst thing ever. But AI does pick up on that stuff, which is brilliant, and it can help you like, oh, you meant this word, not that word.
I am guessing there's a difference between the physical and the digital world, right? So if you look at a book or a letter in the physical world, it's very different, obviously, than having something read to you or trying to see it on the screen. So do you find that you try to digitize things, or is it just sort of like difficult to?
So when you just said about digitalizing stuff, so books, I've always wanted to read books, right? I just love, the idea of stories and stuff like that. But every time I picked up a physical book, I'd catch myself like losing my place or just constantly rereading the page and like it just wasn't going in. And I remember like somebody I saw somewhere to be like, oh, try a Kindle. A Kindle might help with dyslexia. And I was like, how can it help? Because it's exactly the same, right? I swear to God, that's changed my life. I read books like no tomorrow now, ever since like putting it on a digital format. And it's mainly because I have control over the size of the font, what font is using to make it easier to read for dyslexia, and also the lighting on a Kindle. So one thing that I've noticed, especially like reading paper or books, depending on which light you're in, that's when the letters can move around. It is so weird to explain, but like it's just the way the light hits that paper, and then those letters can move around. And so like if you're moving through like a changing environment, so if you're on a train, where one minute you could be going through a tunnel, next minute, you're out in the nice countryside, that lighting is changing. Where on a Kindle, that lighting doesn't change because they got that screen, which is like, I don't know how to explain it, but like, it doesn't matter which way you turn the device, the lighting on that screen never changes, and it's awesome. And you can change the colors, it can be really bright or really dark. So digitalizing that format has been awesome for me personally for dyslexia. Because yeah, the traditional book I could just never read, but a Kindle, honestly, I think I picked up a Kindle last year, and I think I read 10 books in a year, which is unbelievable for me. Where previously I would struggle trying to get through one.
Amazing. So something as simple as a Kindle would probably recommend to people then if they're having trouble in reading.
Yeah, 100%.
Anything
Like
else that
reading
you
on a
found sort of like helps that you might
um
recommend to people?
yeah, so I think a lot of people have got into audiobooks. I haven't got there yet, but what I do find super useful is watching videos with subtitles, because then you get to pick up on like different words that you've never heard before and stuff like that. And again, that falls into like the next bit I'll talk about. So recently I found out that I qualify for 2 hearing aids. I recently went to get my ears tested. It's not a shock. My family always say to me that I don't hear them and stuff like that. But yeah, I went and got my ears tested, and turns out I need 2 hearing aids. And everything clicked because I watch everything with subtitles on, like right now. Like everything I watch, like YouTube videos or like TV, subtitles are always on. And it's not because I'm sat there reading those subtitles. it's usually for me to just like, if I misheard something, I can just pick up on it really quickly. But then it's also like super useful for when like I watch loads of content on my phone now without the sound on. I just read the subtitles. I don't even use the sound. I just read the subtitles. And I think that that's helped my reading as well, because it's just helped me pick up on things really quickly and stuff like that.
I wonder, when did you first notice your hearing was different to others, maybe? Was that something that you've always lived with and just now having it checked? And do you think the two go hand in hand in a way?
I think maybe they do go like hand in hand. Like I just had, to be honest with you, back when I was like a teenager and iPods come out, I was still am into like heavy metal music, which would be blasting with earphones on and go into loads of like gigs and shows. Turns out that's not very good for your hearing. Back then you're just a kid, right? You just want to listen to like Metallica at the highest sound ever. And then as I got older, I think I noticed first of all in like my mid-20s, I think about 26. And I just thought, oh, I just need to go and get my ears cleaned. So I did that, and I was like, but nothing sounds different. And then they recommended that I go get my ears checked. And I did back then when I was like 26. Turns out 10 years ago, like 26, I qualified for 2 hearing aids, but I was just like, I'm in full denial. I do not want to like accept it. To me, I think I can hear fine. I don't know what it was. Looking back now, it's so silly. I don't know what it was. I was just like, I am not ready to accept this. And then recently, I have a daughter. She's almost 4 now, but now she talks to me. She's like, "Mommy, you're not listening to me." And I am. I'm just like mishearing some words. And then my partner, he was like, I think you should go and get your ears checked again just to make sure. So he kind of just like helped me come to the terms with it. And I thought, fine, whatever, I'll go get it checked. And I did recently. I got it checked. And yeah, the same thing again was like, you qualify for 2 hearing aids. I was like, okay. I was like, I'm ready to accept it now, and I'll get them. I'm still waiting on them. So I think I've got like 6 weeks to wait. So yeah, I'll be getting them fitted soon. But like I said, I'm not surprised. I was just in denial, and I don't know why I was in denial. I just am. But I think the more your loved ones are kind of onto you, and you're like, okay, I'm not understanding my own child now. Maybe I should. And like, there's aids out there, and like I rave about accessibility. I rave about like technology that can help people. I was being a bit of a hypocrite to be like, oh well, these things are there to help me and I'm not accepting it. So I kind of had that realization and thought, right, now's the time. Come on.
And what's been your experience? You mentioned you use and rely on subtitles quite a lot
A lot.
and struggle to read certain fonts, or I'm assuming italics, those sorts of things. What's been your experience with that? Have there been that kind of those additional barriers when you've got more than one requirement?
Yeah. So italics, you're right. Yeah, I hate italics. Never put the italics on. Like it's a good thing about subtitles these days, especially things with like Netflix or YouTube. You can customize the way those subtitles show. So I think when I first started reading subtitles, I think they were always yellow on a black background. Um, that doesn't work too well for me, and I don't know why. So I always switch it to white text on like a dark background, and that just helps me read a bit more. And it's mainly because I just glance. I'm not sitting there reading it. I'm glancing at it because I'm still listening to what people are saying. And then it's that thing then, because like when I got my ears tested, they said, oh, you missed the frequencies of beginning and end of words. So you catch the middle. So if I'm watching something and I mishear something, I can just glance down and go, that's what they meant, and then carry on. So I'm not sitting there reading every single word. I'm just glancing now and again. If I mishear something, it's like, right, that is what they said. And it's just so natural now. And like, you just literally just get into that thing of like, I don't realize I'm doing it. And like I'd be watching something, I'll glance, I'll get on with my day and stuff like that.
When you were talking, you said is reading and also typing you had issue with. What helps you with typing? Like, we have much more advanced natural language processing sort of techniques now? Do you use any of those to help you with your typing? Like, do you use voice typing? Do you use voice texting? Do you use sort of like, I don't know, hey, whatever. I'm not going to say anything because I'll activate about 50
Yeah.
things around the room. But like write this for me, or sort of like, do you activate anything that does longer term transcription, or what do you do?
Yeah, 100%. So I have smart devices too, and I'm not going to say their names because they will all start tinging off. But yeah, like I made a joke to say like Siri was my best friend, because if you got a text message from me which was spelled correctly, I didn't write it. I spoke to my phone and then that wrote it for me. And I do the same like now, like if I got ChatGPT open, I just need to get stuff out of my head, I'll just start talking to it. And then it kind of just like puts it all in like a format for me to understand, because I always say to it, look, don't give me long paragraphs. I can't read them. Bullet point everything for me. What are the main takeaways from this is another thing that helps. Working in digital, people love to send like a big meaty email. I can't sit there and try and read this meaty email. So 9 times out of 10, I've copied it, chucked it into AI and asked it what in this email is for me or designed specifically, so I can filter out all the other stuff that I don't need. And can you list it in a way for me to understand, which is mainly in bullet points? And yeah, sometimes I get it to write a checklist for me as well. So if I received a massive email with loads of like design changes, I'm not going to sit through that whole email trying to figure out what all those changes are. I just ask AI, look at this, give it back to me what I need to change in the designs and give me a checklist for it. And that's like the perfect way to do it. And then like I cross-reference it. You always need a human, so a person to cross-reference everything and check that it hasn't hallucinated something. But it's much quicker to do it that way than what it would have been for me to sit there, read through that email and write my own checklist. It's just a waste of time. So it speeds a lot of stuff up for me. One is more accurate because it's giving me the information I need. Two, it speeds up my process because I am going to sit there trying to write that checklist myself. And like three, it helps with that cognitive overload stuff. So if I'm sitting there reading a lot, I get really tired or the information just doesn't go in. It helps with all that because it's giving me in a format that my brain can understand, and it's perfect for that.
Great. So lots of tools and lots of sort of insights into how things work. Do you ever find yourself wanting to do something that you can't and you haven't figured out how to do yet?
I think like looking back through my life, I've always had some sort of like framework in place, which I didn't realize I was putting a framework in place. So a good example is back when I was like in high school, we had two different timetables. They were called week A and week B. Week A and week B, they would like interchange. So one week you do in week A, next week you do in week B, and then they'll switch. And your lessons would obviously like change on those as well. So not every Monday would be the same or every Tuesday, but you'd have the same lessons, span over those 2 weeks. I color coded them, so I knew this is week A and this is week B, and every single square of my timetable had a color associated to it. So art was always light blue. So I wouldn't have to read my timetable. I would just look at all the colors and be like, well, I got maths, PE, art, RE, without having to read it. It was just color coded. Um, and I find myself doing that like now as well. Like I color code quite a lot of stuff. Like I have loads of post-it notes which like certain colors on them. One would be like for daily tasks or like home tasks. The other one is like work related tasks. Color coding is brilliant, again, to help with dyslexia. Like I say, you always find like your own little quirks in these things, and I think like throughout my time, or like throughout my life, I've always found like a quirk to get something, and I never realized I was doing it. And yeah, like I try to like my 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 sister's kids, pretty sure one of them is has dyslexia. And they face the same as well throughout school. And these what I found the things as I started like offering to them. I was like, just color code it. You'd be able to remember it a lot easier. So when they were like studying for their exams, I was like, color code it. You'd be able to retain that information quicker than what it is if you're just trying to read a book, color code things, highlight things.
Is there anything that we've missed in terms of what you would want to tell people, and encourage more people to be considerate of when they're designing, whether it's websites or just in their everyday world around them?
Yeah, I think that the main thing I would like to get across is that creativity and accessibility are not two different things. They can be harmonized and they can work together. You don't have to sacrifice one for the other. And to not see accessible design or inclusive design as a feature, like it should just be a given. And if you're willing to incorporate accessibility into your designs, then you will make a better product for everyone. Like everyone can use accessibility features.
I love that. I think, what you were sharing about your own personal experience of, for the last 10 plus years, you've been using captions to support you to access information. And yet there wasn't a label or a diagnosis or anything telling you that that's what you needed, but it helped. But it also helps me if I am watching a YouTube video or a social media post.
You started in the beginning by saying, I want to be able to make sure, because of your work, because of your experience as well, that this isn't a sort of nice add-on. Things should be integrated. So things like bigger text that helped you on the Kindle, I mean, they should be a default, for anything that you do. So those things, they're a legal requirement, they're an ethical requirement, but we still will have so many things that break those rules that are even sort of like a legal requirement. So it's a big, big lesson to kind of go, these should be included immediately. Thank you for sharing your experiences so openly. We know that these conversations can be personal, and we really appreciate your honesty.
We really hope this helps other beautifully diverse humans think differently, consider how others may experience the world, and create a more inclusive world.